Hello and welcome to John's Author Diary for the weekend in July 22nd, 2018. I've had another crazy busy week. I launched a new podcast on Monday with Lynn Sheridan and Killian Carter. This is called Otaku on Writing, and it's basically where we dissect classic anime movies in order to brainstorm our own original fiction. So we did that. We had the first cycle of those episodes come out, and we reviewed the movie Akira, which celebrated its 30th anniversary this week. And so I finished writing a short story for that and formatting it and getting it ready for publication. So I think that'll come out next Thursday. The collection's called Awake, Otaku Stories 1. And so with this podcast, I'll be writing a new short story every 3 weeks and putting them out in mini anthologies. And so hopefully what we'll have is a bit of a symbiotic relationship between the books and the podcast. So people who find the books will find the podcast and vice versa. And it's just a lot of fun to brainstorm with other people and to revisit some of these movies that I haven't watched in years. So do check that out, even if you're not into anime. I think if you're into storytelling and the creative process and looking at films as writers, I think this is a really interesting podcast for people. So alongside getting all that done, I released another episode of the Stop Booking Around podcast. And so Russ is at a point now where he started writing, and I'm kind of teaching him how to write on the fly. So we had an episode about showing, not telling, and I think we'll probably revisit that subject in the coming weeks because it is such a crucial part of the writing process. And with my own writing, I have finished the first draft of The High Priestess. Now managed to do this in 2.5 writing sessions, which is insane to me. It will obviously need a redraft, it will need a rewrite, and so I think it'll still need a couple of weeks of work, but that's a really good place to be. Really pleased that I can get a draft of what is essentially a 20,000 word novella done within 2.5 days. So now my son has broken up from school, so he's just finished reception and we'll go into year 1 in September. So this means I don't have any scheduled writing days over the next 6 weeks, which is really daunting for me. I've got into a really nice habit of writing and producing, and there's a part of me that is concerned that this writing that I've built up, being able to write a first draft in 2.5 days, that I'm going to lose that. And I'm going to have to rebuild towards it again. I think the next 6 weeks is going to be dedicated to doing editing tasks when I can fit them in. So I know that I've got to do an edit of The Magician. I need to redraft The High Priestess. And I also need to redraft the Black Death trilogy, which won't actually be coming out under my name. That'll be under a joint pen name with 2 other authors. But what we figured was it'll look better to have 1 name on a cover than 3. So look out for the young upstart Logan Shields in the not too distant future. Now, I'm a little bit frustrated with how the collaborative stuff is going. This isn't because of the other authors. This is because of Lloyds Bank. So to give you a bit of context, what we've done is we've set up a limited liability partnership, which is basically to protect ourselves as a business. And with that, we've tried to set up a joint bank account with Lloyds. Now, we applied for this, I think it was in February, and it's now July, and it's still being processed. So this has put a lot of things on hold that we've wanted to do, because I think we would have got things like the Otaku on Writing podcast out sooner, and got an Amazon account set up sooner, and all these things that are on hold because of this one blockage. So we've basically got a standing bank account until we can get the joint one sorted, which isn't ideal. So I'm hoping that gets sorted out over the next week or so. I read a really cool non-fiction book this week called How We Got to Now. And it was about 6 inventions that had drastically changed our society and lives. And so there were things like glass and refrigeration and things like that. And it was just interesting thinking about the idea of networks of invention, how things don't happen in a vacuum, and how there's a kind of inevitability sometimes when you get 2 people in different places of the world coming up with the same invention at a similar time. And it's like they've made these connections between things that they couldn't have made before this point. So I thought that was an absolutely fascinating read, and I'd highly recommend that. I've also started reading a book on craft called Into the Woods by John York. Now, the reason I'm looking at this book is this guy is a TV writer. He's written for things like EastEnders and stuff like that. So I'm interested in trying to get to the heart of storytelling in this episodic, serialised form rather than thinking about it in terms of a single novel, a single arc. And I'm hoping that I can get some sound advice from that book. I'm about 1/3 of the way in, and I'm not sure yet whether I'm getting anything new from it. It's a lot about things like the hero's journey and story structure, but we'll see how that one goes. I'm also reading a book called A Brief History of the Samurai, and again, another fascinating book. I'm essentially wanting something a little bit similar to a samurai type group in my epic fantasy series, so I'm looking at this and seeing if I can get some inspiration from that. So that's been a really good read so far. And in fiction, I've started reading Hard Times by Charles Dickens. I'm about 8 chapters in, and so far it's been quite funny. I'm hoping that is the intention of the book, but it's amused me, so that's good. The thing that I've found weird about reading it is it's very rare that you'll see third-person omniscient in a book now, so it's really jarring when we're suddenly drifting from one character's motivations to another, but it's interesting nonetheless. So I've had no questions this week, but if you have a question, please tweet me. It's at JLCronshaw, or you can email john@johncronshaw.com. That's JONCRONSHAW. You can download The Fool, which is book 0 in my epic fantasy series. So you can get this from InstaFreebie. Simply go onto my Twitter, at JLCronshaw, and it's the pinned post, and you can download it there. So until next time, cheerio.